If you scrolled through Isabella's social media feed, you would believe I was the happiest man in the world. The most recent photo, posted 2 hours ago, already had over 1,000 likes. In it, there are the three of us. Me, Charles, 40 years old, with a smile that seems serene and the beginning of gray hairs at my temples that Isabella said gave me a distinguished air. She at 38 is impeccable as always, her dark hair shining under the Texas sun, her face perfectly angled. And between us, our 8-year-old daughter, Aria, the only genuinely happy element in that picture. The caption read, "Family afternoon with my loves. Grateful for everything. Perfect family, true love." I would look at the phone screen, see the comments full of hearts and compliments, and then raise my eyes to the silent living room of our Austin penthouse. Isabella was on the other sofa, wearing headphones, her eyes fixed on her own screen, a world away. The gratitude from the caption hadn't made it here. This was our new reality. A double life where the online version was much more convincing than the offline one. I am an architect. My job is to build solid, functional, safe structures. I applied the same logic to my life. I married an intelligent and ambitious woman, had a wonderful daughter, and built a home that was a fortress of comfort and security. Or so I thought. The crack in my foundation had a name, Leo. He came into our lives as a personal trainer, and Isabella's New Year's resolution to focus on well-being. At first, I encouraged it. I was happy for her. Isabella seemed more vibrant, more energized. The hours at the gym became her sacred ritual. The problem is that her temple seemed to require secrets. The first signs were subtle, easy to ignore. The phone that was turned face down on the table when I entered the room. The calls she answered with a quick, "Hi, I'm with Charles now, I'll call you later." I, the loyal husband, the trusting partner, told myself it was all in my head. Work stress, fatigue. I was projecting my own insecurities onto her. When I casually mentioned that she and Leo seemed very close, she looked at me with such well-rehearsed disappointment that I felt guilty on the spot. "Charles, for God's sake, he's my trainer." "What are you implying? That I can't have a friend? After everything I do for this family, don't I deserve an hour to take care of myself?" The conversation ended there, with me apologizing. Paranoia, however, is like a leak. It starts with a small damp spot and, by the time you realize it, the whole wall is compromised. I started to notice the smell of a different men's cologne in her car. Not mine, but something more citrusy, younger. When I asked, she laughed and said it must have been from the restaurant's valet. The excuse was plausible. All her excuses were, Isabella was brilliant at creating narratives that made me doubt my own sanity. And so, I lived in a state of silent alert, pretending to believe in the perfect storefront she displayed to the world, while inside, I desperately searched for the crack in the wall that would prove I wasn't crazy. I just didn't know that the entire house was already condemned and everyone, except me, already knew about the demolition. The opportunity for paranoia to become fact came in a manila envelope with the bank's logo. Bills. The most mundane and predictable part of a couple's life. I always organized the finances. It was part of my methodical architect's nature. Everything needs a solid foundation. As I was sorting the mail on our marble countertop, a statement from Isabella's supplementary credit card fell out. Normally I wouldn't even look, but something made me stop. A charge at a restaurant called the Cypress Grove. I didn't know it. The amount was high for 2 people. The date was a Thursday 3 weeks ago. The night Isabella had gone out for a girls' dinner with friends she swore were her confidants. I remember it perfectly because Aria had a fever and I stayed home taking care of her, feeling a hint of resentment that she hadn't canceled. My heart began to beat erratically. I tried to be logical. Maybe she took a friend there, but why had she never mentioned it? It was an expensive place. I grabbed my phone and searched for the restaurant's name. The first images that appeared were of couples at candlelit tables, an intimate, romantic atmosphere. The place's slogan was, "Where love stories are celebrated." A chill ran down my spine. This was the proof. The crack I was so desperately looking for. It was no longer a suspicion, a feeling. It was a line printed on paper, a date, an amount. The truth in its most bureaucratic and undeniable form. That night, when I tried to talk to my friend Alex during a basketball game on TV, his response was like a bucket of cold water. "Dude, a restaurant. What's the problem?" he said without taking his eyes off the screen. "Isabella has good taste. She might have taken her friend to a nice place. You're freaking out over nothing. Relax, Charles, seriously. You have an amazing woman, don't suffocate her." The way he said "don't suffocate her" sounded less like advice and more like a veiled order. I decided to confront her. I waited for Isabella to get home from the gym, with that endorphin glow on her face that I used to admire and now only made me nauseous. I placed the statement on the table, with the expense line circled in pen. "What is this, Isa?" I asked, my voice shakier than I would have liked. She looked at the paper, and for a millisecond I saw it, a flash of panic in her eyes. But it disappeared as quickly as it came, replaced by a mask of offense and hurt. "Are you going through my bills now, Charles? Is this what we've come to?" Defensiveness was her first line of attack. "I didn't go through them. This came in the mail. I just want to know what this place is," I insisted. She sighed, a long, theatrical sigh, and then looked at me with teary eyes. It was a surprise. For us. For our wedding anniversary. I went there with Sarah to check out the ambiance, to see if it was special enough. And you, with your sick suspicion, just ruined it. Congratulations. The explanation was perfect. So perfect it was cruel. She completely disarmed me. In an instant, I went from investigator to villain, from victim to aggressor. Guilt washed over me, heavy and suffocating. How could I have been so low? How could I have doubted her to this extent? I apologized again. She accepted with the magnanimity of a queen forgiving a servant. But when she hugged me, her body was stiff. The hug had no warmth. That night, lying in bed next to her, I watched her sleep, or pretend to sleep. Her story was flawless, but the panic I saw in her eyes, that 1-second flash, that was real. The rest was just part of the script, and I understood that to find out the end of this play, I would have to stop being a spectator in the front row and start investigating backstage, alone. If you are feeling the anguish of this story, if you have ever had the feeling that something was wrong even when everyone said you were crazy, then show your support. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a second of how this house of cards will come tumbling down. Your support means everything. Now, let's get back to the darkness. The apology I gave Isabella was the last act of my old life. From that moment on, the loyal and trusting Charles was replaced by a strategist. A man who now saw his home not as a home, but as a chessboard. If her explanation about the restaurant was such a well-constructed lie, then her entire routine was suspect. The gym, dinners with friends, shopping trips. It was all a fog of deceit, and I needed a beacon. The technology she used to weave her social web of lies would become my tool to unravel it. I bought the smallest GPS tracker money could buy online. The box arrived in a discreet package, and I felt like a criminal opening it. The installation was even worse. In the silent garage of our building, while she took a long bath, I knelt and attached the small magnetic device under the bumper of her luxury car. My hands were shaking. I was violating the privacy of my wife, the mother of my daughter. The man I was, or thought I was, would never do this. But that man no longer existed. The first few days were frustratingly normal. The tracker showed her car at the gym, the mall, Aria's school. I started to think Alex was right, that I was indeed crazy, succumbing to a paranoia that would destroy my marriage. I was about to remove the device when, on a Wednesday afternoon, the pattern broke. The app on my phone showed her car moving away from the gym, crossing the city towards a residential area we had no reason to go to. The dot stopped in front of a modern, anonymous apartment complex, and there it stayed, for an hour, 2, 3 hours. The time coincided exactly with the intense workout she claimed to have with Leo. My blood ran cold. There was no relief in the confirmation, just a dull, deep pain. the sound of my life breaking apart. The scene repeated on Friday, and the following Monday. The gym was just the first stop, the alibi. The real destination was that apartment. To be absolutely sure, on one of those days I drove to the location. I parked my car a block away, my heart pounding against my ribs. There was her car, parked on the street, and next to it, a black sports motorcycle that I instantly recognized from the photos Leo, the trainer, posted on his social media, always bragging about his freedom. His freedom was my prison. What could they be doing in there? My imagination drew scenarios that caused me physical pain. I wanted to get out of the car, run to the door, pound on it until it opened, and confront them both. But what would I say? What would I do? The anger was a wave, but underneath it was an overwhelming fear. The fear that by opening that door, my life as I knew it would cease to exist forever. That night I met Isabella and my group of friends at a bar. They had insisted I go out, to distract myself. I went. I needed to see their faces. And there they were, all laughing, toasting. Isabella was radiant, sitting next to me, touching my arm affectionately for anyone watching. Alex, my best friend, slapped me on the back and said, "See, man, everything's cool. You guys are the perfect couple." I looked at each of their faces. Alex's smile, Ben's laugh, the knowing glance Isabella exchanged with them when she thought I wasn't looking. They weren't my friends. They were the guardians of her secret, accomplices. I was the only one there who didn't belong to that club. Sitting in the middle of them, I had never felt so completely alone. The blinking red dot on my phone's map wasn't just the location of her car. It was the exact location of the betrayal, the epicenter of the earthquake that was about to destroy everything. The drive home after seeing the car and the motorcycle together was the longest of my life. Every red light, every intersection, was torture. The image of the two vehicles side by side, a silent declaration of complicity, was etched in my mind. The anger I expected to feel didn't come as an explosion, but as a sharp coldness, a glacial clarity. A confrontation now would be a disaster. It would be my word against hers, screams, accusations, and she, with her unparalleled ability to distort reality, would make me look like the jealous madman once again. I couldn't allow that. I am an architect. I don't start a construction without a blueprint, without calculations, without being sure of every detail. I would not demolish my life without a plan. In the following days, I became a ghost in my own house. I smiled at the right time, asked the right questions about her day, played my role as a husband with a precision that completely fooled her. But inside, I was on a construction site, designing my exit. I needed more than a dot on a map. I needed something irrefutable. On a Friday, knowing it was date day, I left work early. I went to the same location, but this time, I parked at a different angle, with a clear view of the building's door. I waited. Every minute was agony. And then, they came out. Isabella and Leo. They weren't holding hands, they didn't kiss. It was worse. It was the casual intimacy, the lack of ceremony of a couple. He said something and she laughed, throwing her head back in that way I used to love. He touched her back for a second, a gesture of possession disguised as courtesy, as he opened the car door for her. With my phone's camera zoom at maximum, my hands trembling, I captured that moment. The photo was a bit blurry, but the truth in it was crystal clear. The next step was the hardest. Aria, my daughter, the center of my universe. She didn't deserve the collateral damage of this war. On a Saturday afternoon, while we were assembling a puzzle in the living room, I started the conversation. In the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "Aria, honey, you know that Daddy and Mommy love you more than anything in the world, right?" She nodded, focused on a piece. "And that will never ever change. But sometimes adults, they stop making each other happy. And it's nobody's fault, especially not yours. We're going through some problems and things might get a little different for a while. But our love for you is the one thing that will last forever." She stopped fiddling with the pieces and looked at me with that wisdom only children have. "Are you going to yell at each other?" she asked, her voice tiny. "No, my love, Daddy promises there will be no yelling," I replied, swallowing the lump in my throat. I was making a promise not only to her but to myself. The final confirmation that there was nothing left to save came that very night. Isabella came home, radiant. She talked non-stop about a new marketing project she was developing, a huge campaign that would require some research trips. She mentioned Cannes in France. The excitement in her voice was so fake, so forced. On her computer, which she left open, an email tab showed a hotel reservation confirmation. For 2 people, in Cannes, in her name. There was no mention of work. It was their lovers' trip, funded by our joint account. At that moment, the pain gave way to steel. The betrayed architect gave way to the demolisher. I sat in my office, the photo I took on my phone now on the computer screen, sharp and damning. Beside it, the hotel reservation. The puzzle pieces were all on the table. Their betrayal was loud and careless. My response would be silent, calculated, and, above all, inevitable. They built their own trap. I smiled, a cold smile from someone who knows the show is about to end. Arya was at my sister's house, safe and away from what was to come. I had promised her there would be no screaming, and I would keep my word. My revenge would not be an act of passion, but of precision. When everyone was gathered in the living room, I asked for their attention for a toast. I picked up the television remote. "Before we toast to Issa's trip," I began, my voice firm and calm, "I've prepared a little tribute. I would just decide the day and time it would spring." The day of Isabella's farewell party arrived. She organized it all herself. An intimate gathering in our penthouse to celebrate her great work opportunity in Cannes. It was her final performance, and I would make it unforgettable. Our friends, or rather her accomplices, were all there. Alex, Ben, their wives, all raising champagne glasses, praising Isabella's ambition, patting me on the back for being such a supportive husband. A retrospective of the last few months that have been so transformative for us. Isabella smiled, thinking it was a public declaration of love. She snuggled up next to me. The first slide appeared on the giant TV screen. Our perfect family photo, the same one from Instagram. Then a few more, smiles at dinners, hugs on holidays, the storefront. "We started like this," I said, looking at the faces in the room. The perfect couple, the perfect friends. Then the soft music stopped. The next slide was a map of Austin, with her car's route traced in red to the apartment complex. An uncomfortable silence began to settle in. The next slide was the photo, the blurry but unmistakable image of her and Leo at the building's entrance. I heard a sharp gasp. It was Alex's wife. The next slide was a screenshot from her phone, showing dozens of calls between her and Leo, with little hearts next to his name. The next, the hotel confirmation in Cannes. For 2 guests, room with a sea view. Isabella's face went from pink to white. Alex's smile froze. The last slide was a bank statement, highlighting the purchase of a luxury watch I had never seen. A gift for him. I turned off the TV. The room was in a deathly silence. "The toast," I continued, raising my glass in the deafening silence, "is to the truth, and to the new journeys we will all be taking." I looked at Isabella, whose eyes were shooting daggers of hatred and panic. "You can go to Cannes, enjoy it. Leo is probably waiting for you. But when you come back, your things will no longer be here. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow about the divorce and full custody of Arya, citing neglect and a morally unsuitable environment." Then, I turned my gaze to Alex and Ben. "And to my friends, thank you for taking such good care of her while I was busy building the life you pretended to admire. Your loyalty has been noted." I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just presented the facts like an architect presenting a demolition plan. Their public humiliation was more devastating than any of my screams would have been. Isabella tried to say something, but her voice wouldn't come out. For the first time, she didn't have a script. 1 year later. The penthouse was sold. I designed and built a new house for myself and Arya, It's smaller, more modest, but the windows are huge and light floods in from all sides. There is no longer a musty smell hidden by air fresheners. Aria has her own garden. We laugh a lot more now. As for Isabella, I heard the trip to Cannes was a disaster. The life she had, built on my trust and my money, fell apart. Leo left her months later. Her friends drifted away, the social shame was too great. She now lives in a rented apartment, trying to rebuild an image that has been permanently tarnished. Sometimes I see her attempts to look happy on social media, but the storefront is cracked and everyone can see it. I don't feel hatred, not even satisfaction. I feel peace. The peace of someone who demolished a condemned structure and, with the very bricks of truth, built a solid, honest, and unshakable foundation for the future. This was Charles's journey, a story about betrayal, but above all about rediscovering one's own strength. If you were moved or outraged by this story, don't go away yet. Leave a like to help us bring more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel and, most importantly, comment below from which city you are watching. We want to know how far Charles's story has reached. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be the first to know when a new story goes live. Check out our channel. We have many other stories waiting for you. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.